Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Amen.
And I'm Tana Amen. Welcome to Change Your Brain, Change Your Life.
You are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better. We can prove it. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most interesting subjects in my life, ADD and intimacy. So what does having ADD do to relationships? And, I often say I know more about it than I want to. People who've read my book, Healing ADD, or ADD and Intimacy, know that my beautiful wife has ADD.
Which I did not believe.
3 of my 4 children. So I know a lot about this, have thought about a lot of this at Amen Clinics. So we've seen well over 50,000 patients over the last 25 years. Half of them have had ADD.
Right.
And so any issue you can imagine, we've dealt with it. But intimacy is actually one of the most important. Mm-hmm. And if you just think about it, the hallmark symptoms of ADD, short attention span, so you can see how that's going to affect a relationship in a negative way, distractibility, disorganization, often. I often say Tana never met a cabinet door she actually wanted to close, but since people with ADD are really smart, she taught our dog Aslan to close them after her. It's hysterical. Short attention span, distractibility, disorganization, procrastination, and impulse control. So saying or doing things that you might not think all the way through.
But you don't have to have all of those, or you may not have them all equally.
Right. Not everybody does.
Because there's different types of ADD.
Disorganization, you bet.
Right.
She's not late.
And
a lot of people with ADD tend to be late because they're not organized really well for time.
Well, and for example, I don't procrastinate because I have anxiety.
Right. So she has one of the subtypes. In my work, I talk about 7 types of ADD, and one of them is anxious ADD. But excitement seeking, yeah. She worked as a neurosurgical ICU nurse. When it is left untreated, it is often that irritation between couples that people don't really understand. And it can devastate relationships. People who have ADD get divorced more. There are more affairs. There are more issues with money. And there are a fair amount of sexual issues. Because, when I lecture, I often say, so what does it require? What does an orgasm require? Focus. You have to pay attention to the feeling long enough in order to make it happen. So there are a lot of sexual issues between couples that if they just get the ADD treated, it'd be helpful, so much more helpful.
And in addition to that, you're talking about people with ADD who are excitement seeking. So let's be very clear. I'm excitement seeking in a different way. So in I practice martial arts. I like working in a trauma unit. But when you're talking about intimacy and relationships, so if people are, because you treat a lot of sex addicts. So if they're excitement seeking and this is showing up in their relationships, it's not all about just being able to focus on having an orgasm. Sometimes this excitement seeking behavior can show up in the bedroom, and it doesn't work for the other person.
Right. In fact, sexuality, really successful sexuality, is a match between 2 brains. So unfortunately, what tends to happen is the low frontal lobe person who is excitement seeking tends to gravitate toward the over-focused person who's not excitement seeking at all. They like ritual. They like it the same way because that's comforting to them, and that can cause some real sexual friction, not in a good way.
Right. So, and one thing I think we should point out is this isn't a show about judgment. I mean, this isn't about what's right and what's wrong. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a thing. So we're just here to help maybe sort out why sometimes there's friction. And, it's really about finding that match or understanding if you're already matched, how to make things better.
Well, and one of the things we learned early on, because, we're not a perfect match, I mean, I adore you, is it's really, it's not about, oh, she's right or wrong for me. It's about alchemy,
And
which
if you
is,
want it
can
to
we
work.
create together what is awesome and amazing?
Right. And the bigger question is, do you want it to work?
And are you willing to work for it? Because there's just no question. Being married be one of the hardest things you ever do, but if you do it right, it's one of the most satisfying.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some practical tips really quickly that help with intimacy. So I have to say, I mean, I'm actually very blessed. I'm very fortunate because I have a partner who is very understanding about this topic. First of all, I didn't even believe I had ADD. I didn't even believe in ADD when I met him.
Like it's a religion.
Right. You know, for me, it was an excuse for people to not do well in life or fail or whatever. But as I got to know him, I'm like, hey, wait a second. That explains my whole life growing up, right? So I started to understand some of the chaos in my family and my life growing up, and it made sense to me. But one of the things that I really gravitated toward you, just like we alluded to a minute ago, I often refer to Daniel as my rock because he's solid, he's grounding, he's got that very soothing kind of personality. I'm intense. I mean, I'm an intense person, just all the way around. You know, that's just my nature. So I like that about him. I also have to realize in choosing someone like that, he's going to be different from me. So you have to be you have to come into this with a little bit of maturity, I think, knowing that it's like, oh, I want this stability. Does that mean, you know, am I going to get him to go hike Machu Picchu or go skydiving with me, or, you know, it's not going to happen. Okay, so that would be unreasonable for me to assume because I picked him because of his ability to be grounding and calming and soothing. So there are times where I'm like, I want to go do something, you know, really exciting, but I know that that's not going to be what I do with him. And you need to.
So, and on the same way, because she's not organized, it doesn't bother me. I just help set up systems so that the cabinet doors get closed, the wrappers get thrown away. I'm not harping, because when you harp, there's nothing good that comes from that. I just understand we both have strengths. She has many, and focus on the strengths and just have workarounds for the things
that's a really
are challenges.
That's a really good point, and I love this because my my martial arts master actually taught me this: fighters fight and writers write. And when I learned that concept, I'll explain what that means. It was very liberating. So we really do appreciate each other's strengths, and we try to minimize, what bothers us and the weaknesses. Of course, we get irritated with each other. I mean, it's just not possible for a married couple to not. It's how you handle that irritation, I think, that's more important. But when I realized, like, I used to try to feel like I had to try and do everything and do it right, because I'm a recovering perfectionist. So when I figured out that that's not how life works best, so I figured out what my strengths are. I'm really good at writing. I'm really good at teaching. I'm really good at teaching people how to live a healthy lifestyle. I'm not good at closing cabinet doors because I don't really care. So, I can't get done.
Well, you actually don't see them open.
I don't care. There's just too much to do in a day. And, so when I figured that out, it's like, oh, okay, set my life up so that I can really get a lot done in the areas on the things that I'm really good at. And at the top of that list is really taking care of my family. So I want to take care of my family. I want to do all these things. If I'm not good at these other things, let me get help over here. And that's where I have a partner who's really understanding. When I go to him and say, look, I want to focus on writing books, on teaching people in our clinics, on spending quality time with you and my daughter, but I just can't do it all, and I'm not good at these things. Can you help me out?
Right, so it's the communication part. Communication is just absolutely critical. So don't hold in, otherwise it'll come out and it'll explode. And then look for solutions. And I always say, where you bring your attention determines how you feel. And so if I brought my attention to all the things that she did that I didn't like, then I'm going to be anxious and irritable and unhappy. But I like the verse from John chapter 8:32. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And the truth is, there's so many amazing things about you that the other things we just figure out workarounds. Now, in my practice where I consult with couples, often they both sort of get into their own corners and they have their huge buckets of smelly fish, hurts from the past, and they take them out and throw them at each other repeatedly. And you have to stop that because that's not going to be helpful. The most helpful exercises I do with my patients is let's talk about why you fell in love. So let's go back. What were the things about that person that you just adored, you felt like you couldn't live without? Because if you focus on the good things, you feel good. If you focus on the bad things, you feel bad and you're infectious. But it's important, so, if we talk about physical intimacy, I think one of the things we do is, what do you need? We're really good about talking about it, so I'm not macho, like you should just accept whatever I do. There are a lot of guys like that. Their egos are really fragile, and they're not good at paying attention. Tell me what turns you on. Tell me what you like. What's the right atmosphere? And because many women who have ADD are easily distracted, the atmosphere, the environment is really important. If you have a child banging on the door, it's probably not going to be a great time.
Right. I actually really like what you're saying there because I think that this is critical. I think a lot of couples actually get into this place of, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. And over time you end up really hurting the other person's feelings because you hold resentment. And if you think that resentment doesn't leak, you're wrong. So, you are in love with this person, you've been intimate with this person for a long time, they're reading your cues. And if you're really unhappy and resentful, it leaks. So,
well, then you're more likely to say no more often, which is going to really hurt his or her feelings. So I think you want to be masterful students of each other. This works, this doesn't work.
And one of the things that I think is helpful with this...
And where are they at in their cycle? Because that's really important, because, things are easier at certain times and harder at other times. It's just, I love this, I came up with it, so I'm always happy about that. Be curious, not furious. Be the student, be the scientist, not just the subject of the situation. So if something doesn't work, it's like, what happened?
Right. So what I wanted to say about this is, instead of maybe approaching the person and saying, I'd like you to listen to what I have to say, and trying to talk about it like that. I think a good way to approach it is we've actually talked about it in advance. And I mean, you're very psychologically minded and very open, and I like that. But he just said, look, I don't know. I can't read your mind. I don't know what you want. I just need you to be always willing to talk to me, and I'm always going to ask you. And so, and vice versa. So if you go into it ahead of time knowing, look, I'm going to set my ego aside. This has nothing to do with me. This has to do with pleasing the other person. Tell them that you need them to tell you. Tell them that you're going to ask, and don't make it about you.
So faking it is actually
stupid.
Short-term, deal with the issue, but it's causing a long-term problem because you're not teaching the other person what you need. Mm-hmm. If this has been helpful to you, write a comment below. We'd really be grateful. Or send us a little video. If you're really struggling with ADD in your relationships, come to one of our clinics. I mean, we probably do that better than anything else. We're so grateful for your attention. Of course, we're talking about ADD. So if you stayed with us this long, we're even more grateful. Thank you so much.